How's it going, everybody? Recording another best ball draft for you. As you know, my name's Stephen Mullen. I'm a best ball specific blog writer for Big Dogs Fantasy. And we're waiting for one more person to jump in the queue for our draft to start here. So, all the content I'm making, videos and articles, are best ball. In September, I'm going to be switching over to doing some DFS stuff. Specifically, going to be looking at the Millionaire Maker every week on DraftKings, just because I think that's the best tournament to play in. So it's looking like we're pick 10 here in this draft. Pretty sure the draft is going to freeze when this minute is up. So at pick 10, we're going to have some choices to be made. So my current rankings are a little bit liquid right now. Moving around a bit with the Tyreek Hill information and everything going down with that. I currently have him ranked as my wide receiver 4 behind Hopkins, Adams, and Julio. I actually took him ahead of Julio in a draft yesterday. Oh, nice. It didn't freeze. It actually just worked. Excellent. That's like one of my most annoying things about draft was this stupid thing freezing every time the draft started. So anyway, I took Tyreek Hill. I think I was at the 111 in the first round, and then I actually just ended up getting Julio in round 2. Then I took Pat Mahomes in round 3, so I was kind of expecting my lineup to look awful because I was waiting on running back, but it didn't turn out too bad because I got 3 running backs that I liked quite a bit. I got Kerryon Johnson, Sony Michel. Who was the other person that I got? Let me take a look real quick. Oh, it was Kerryon Johnson, Sony Michel, and Lamar Miller in rounds 4, 5, 7. So I got Lamar Miller at the 7-11, which was nice, considering I was a little late on running backs. So I was doing some research into some other best ball podcasts and whatnot today. Been working 4 days in a row, 4 12-hour days. So today's the first time I've had a chance to really get into this Tyreek Hill news and stuff. So there's interesting. We've got Kelsey going at the 1-7. As you guys know, Kelsey's my most owned round 1 person, round 1 through 3 person at 16 or 17%. I think the Tyreek Hill news just doesn't really affect him much at all. I know you're saying the targets obviously are affected, but I mean, he was getting 1 million targets with Tyreek Hill, so I assume that doesn't change much. So we got a kind of a world is our oyster situation going on here. I'm going to take Julio. He's my 3rd ranked wide receiver. I will speak to why I made that decision as opposed to the opposite decision. So remember I was telling you at 111 I had taken Tyreek Hill in a previous draft, even though I had Julio ranked higher. Well, my thinking at that 111 is Travis Kelce was still on the board, and he's been slipping into the 2nd round. So I was attempting to go Tyreek Hill, Kelce, Pat Mahomes to have that 3 stack and then build my running backs out after that. So I think that's like a league-winning strategy, and it's easier now to get Kelce than it is to get Hill. In the drafts that I've done, this is only the 4th one, so I can't speak to that as being like gospel. So I thought there was a better chance I could get Hill, Kelce, and Mahomes that way. It didn't end up working out, but then I got Julio, which was fine. So this is a pretty tough pick between. I just can't take Melvin Gordon where I'm at. So this is going to be a little strange, but I'm going to take James Conner. And the reason why I take James Conner is because my ownership on him is dwindled into the danger zone. I am at 3 or 4% James Conner, and I feel like I have no choice but to pull that up a bit because his upside's still very high. There's still people out there that have him ranked, as a running back 5 or 6. I am not among them. But just purely because of ownership, I'm taking a James Conner share there. My number 6 running back, actually there'll be a running back article with tiers, rankings, and all that business coming out probably 1 week from today. But Nick Chubb is actually my 6th ranked running back right now for best ball. In best ball, you don't pay the price for if he splits a little bit of time with Kareem Hunt after Hunt's back in week 10. So you don't have to pay the price for that as much in best ball, right? Because it doesn't matter like how you get the points. It matters the total points. And Chubb, I think, is going to be an absolute wrecking machine while he's the only running back in town. Wow, somebody gives, Graham Barfield. I wonder if that is the Graham Barfield. If so, that is some great value on Schuster. Picking at the front of these drafts, since the Tyreek Hill news has broken, I think it's even better. Like having these first few picks. Just having like anyone else jump up into the early second round like Tyreek Hill did, and pushing all these I still have tier 1 wide receivers on the board, and Antonio Brown, he went, but Mike Evans. I still have tier 2 running backs for me on the board with Chubb and Damian Williams. So you're just getting so much value when you pick at the first 4 picks now. Like, it was already a pretty huge advantage, and I think the Tyreek Hill news has made it even more of an advantage. It's not to say you can't beat those people picking in those spots, but you're gonna have to pick even. I think you need to be weighted more to picking your higher upside guys later and saying to hell with safety. Yeah. So I had a draft the other day where I started off David Johnson, Nick Chubb, Marlon Mack, and that felt really good. That's what I would have done if I was this don't holla at me person. I think he started with Saquon. Yeah. So if I was him, I just wouldn't have taken George Kittle here, and I would have just went Barkley, Chubb, Marlon Mack. Been on my way. On my way to the championship, because I don't think that team would be beatable without injuries. I mean, as long as you're drafting reasonable people at your other spots. But so the other thing is now Patrick Mahomes, I think, is quite reasonable to start taking at the end of round 3. And I think he's a lot better pick than some of the people in round 4 that are available. I don't understand. This whole wide receiver group of Thielen, Hilton, Cooper seem to go all over the place in round 3. I have enough ownership on all of them. I actually got Thielen in round 4 the other day. But I don't really understand how they are dropping so much. So here we're kind of interested in a running back or a wide receiver. AJ Green going off the board. I think I'm going to end up taking a running back here, whether be any of the top 4 on this board. Be pretty funny if I end up with a team that has James Conner and Devonta Freeman, because they're both guys that I'm actually sub 3% on Devonta Freeman right now, and I think I'm at 4% James Conner. So I need to start picking those guys every now and then again. Am I thrilled to do it? No. But as the ownership article will explain a bit, you need to make sure you're protected to some degree. So a lot of people say 3%, that's so low. Does that do anything for you? It does. It does. So even at 3%, you're going to have 1 share to every 3 shares that the average player has. Nice. Of the 2 injury-prone guys, I'm actually way underweight on Leonard Fournette too. So in my next, few drafts, and the few drafts you guys have seen me post if you follow me on Twitter and Instagram lately, there will be links to my Twitter and Instagram below this video in the description. You will see I've been taking a few people that I don't normally draft, and it's mainly because I've hit 160 drafts. I'm planning to have 300, and I'm starting to want to pull my ownership level up a little bit on some people that I'm too low on. So, I recently took a share of Cooper Kupp in the 6th round, which is great value anyway, but that's where I'm looking because I don't have much of him. I don't have much Freeman or Fournette. I had almost no James White because he was going in round 4, and that was just an absolute heck no for me. So, for example here, if Keenan Allen and Stephon Diggs both go, we're going to have to strongly consider Pat Mahomes. I like Edelman quite a bit, but he's just not going to win you a league where I think Pat Mahomes in round 4 now is just that good a value where it is a potential. With Diggs dropping, Diggs is in my tier 2. It's close. I would definitely take Patrick Mahomes over Edelman. Gonna take Diggs here. So the nice thing about that is the fact that we have Julio. So if we had, taken Tyreek Hill out the first round this time, obviously that pick for me would have been Mahomes. But at least we leave ourselves open to around 8 or 9 Matt Ryan to go with our Julio now. Whereas I probably can't take Matt Ryan if I have Mahomes. So that was a pretty tough pick between Diggs and Mahomes. There's there's no way you should be taking, in my opinion, Brandon Cooks or Mark Ingram over Mahomes. These other guys, at least, their upside is high enough. But, Brandon Cooks is going to have 5 touchdowns. I'm not taking a wide receiver, regardless of his catches and yards, is going to have 5 touchdowns over Mahomes. He's got all the weapons now. He's got extra weapons because Kansas City prepared themselves to be without Mahomes, right? So at the 4-9, that value is absolutely bonkers now. But if you ever get him in the mid to late round 4, you're just printing money. So now the Chiefs had prepared themselves to be without Tyreek Hill for X amount of time, so they went and drafted Mecole Hardman. And now they just have him on top of all this. So they're going to be able to run formations out there when they have Watkins, Hardman, Tyreek Hill, Kelsey, Damian Williams. I have a $100 bet I placed on Deshaun Watson at 36-1 to win MVP. And I thought it was the greatest bet ever. So I was definitely disappointed when I saw the Tyreek Hill suspension be 0 games. Because, Mahomes is now got to be the monster favorite to win MVP. So, getting back to the fact I I blog for Big Dogs Fantasy. This is their website. Their draft guide is available. Their draft guide has a lot of extra information in it that others don't, like red zone percentages, target percentages. It's got injury write-ups from real doctors that are also into fantasy football, all that kind of stuff that you will not find on other places. So I recommend you pick up that draft guide. Still got quite a while before our next pick. Currently have 2 running backs and 2 wide receivers, so we're not really forced to do anything. Our team is Julio and Diggs, James Conner, and Leonard Fournette. So this is a team of a bunch of people that I don't draft that often. So sometimes you just got to be able to step outside your comfort zone to get your ownership percentage up. So especially when you've got situations going on, like this Melvin Gordon situation, the Tyreek Hill situation. If you ever start getting people at very, very, very good values and the outcome of their situation isn't known, that's when you want to get your ownership on them, right? So the reason why I'm having to fade Melvin Gordon now is because I was at 14% Melvin Gordon when the news broke, so I just can't afford to buy him. Like if his value became late, like if I had a chance to pick him at the 2.8, the 2.7, yes, I'm still going to take him there. But the early picks in the second round, I cannot afford to buy him because of what I got going on. 2 players on the board I really would like to get a piece of here. My Sony Michel ownership is starting to get too high because I've been pretty much hammering him in the 5th. Sometimes I've been getting him in the 6th. Like there's been times where he comes up in the 5th and I'm just like, the heck with it. And then I'm getting him at like the 6, 7, and I'm like, oh, okay, if you're going to force me to draft him, guess I'll draft him. Still 3 players on the board I'm very interested in, but there's also 3 picks ahead of us. So, all right, we are going to get one of the 3. I will be drafting one of the 3 top players on this list, whether it be White, Moore, or Carson. If we have our pick of the litter, I'm going to take Moore. If I have a choice between White and Carson, that's not going to be an easy choice. I'm going to take White because I have less ownership on him, but that opportunity wasn't presented, so we're just going to take Moore here and be pretty happy about it. Love Moore as my wide receiver 3. On the way back, there still will be some running backs I'm interested in. Getting a little more interested in Tevin Coleman. Recently was watching the All or Nothing Panthers and got to see that game where Tevin Coleman absolutely just destroyed the Panthers defense, which is like a top run defense with Luke Kuechly. And man, he just went wild on them. Of course, he was playing for Atlanta then, but it did perk my my interest a little bit more in Tevin Coleman. Like I realized one game is one game, but I don't think I quite realized how talented he is. That said, I do like some of the wide receiver values. Kind of like Ingram. Shad Penny was somebody that I had in my back of my mind that I was not saying out loud that I kind of wanted here. Peel went with Miller and Penny, huh? I'm a little bit leaning towards taking Tevin Coleman now. So this is another guy, like generally I don't take him here, but I'm under 3% on him as well. I'm a little bit more interested than I was now. So I guess I'm going to take a share here. Obviously, that San Francisco situation could just be terrible. Too many people could touch the ball. But he's the only one that's healthy at the moment. He does everything. He does, rushing, receiving, yada, yada. So I think I'm going to look to get my Coleman ownership up to 5% from, I think right now I'm currently at 2. I'm still a hard fade on Jerick McKinnon until we see him actually do anything. So right now we got 3 running backs, 3 wide receivers. I have a lot of people on this team I don't normally draft, so I'm a little nervous, obviously. But that's what this ownership percentage game is about. So in the description for this video, you will also find the ownership percentage article. And it talks about the maximum I want to own some people, the minimum I want to own some people, what type of players I like to own at each ownership level, what all the different ownership level percentages are. So when you're looking at that, keep in mind it's written from the perspective of 12-team leagues. So all of those percentages are based on 12-team leagues. So you need to adjust them if you're going to be drafting mostly 10-team leagues. So in rounds 1, 2, and 3, I don't like to keep more than 16% ownership on a player that I'm drafting in the first 3 rounds, just because that draft capital, I think, is significantly better or like more important than round 4. So I go 16% max on guys from rounds 1, 2, and 3. Rounds 4 through 9, I max at 25% ownership. And rounds 10 plus, I max at 32% ownership. So where are you coming up with these percentages, you might ask? So in a 12-team league, a player will be owned on average 8.3% of the time, right? So you take 100%, you divide it by 12 teams, you come up with 8.3%. So a player on average is owned by a team 8.3% of the time. So at 16%, I'm getting 2 shares to the average 1. At 25%, I'm getting 3 shares to the average 1. And down at 32%, I'm getting 4 shares to the average 1. And the reason why my ownership cap goes up as it goes down, as the rounds go down, is because you're not using as high draft capital. So if one of those guys gets hurt, it doesn't kill you as much. So this round, people I'm interested in are definitely not Miles Sanders. Couldn't be more out on Miles Sanders now. I like Eckler a reasonable amount with the prospect of a holdout from Melvin Gordon. I think all the tier 1 quarterbacks are off the board, right? Yep. So we're not even going to consider that. I'm also not going to take Matt Ryan. I don't think I'm with my pick. I'd rather wait, and if legitimately there's no pick on the board that I like at all, I'll just take Matt Ryan to stack with Julio. But if there's anyone that I'm interested in, I'll take them and hope Matt Ryan makes it back to me. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. It's not that big a deal. And we'll reassess our quarterback situation at that point. But right now, there really aren't too many people that I'm even interested in on the board. So we could just end up taking Matt Ryan. There's 1.5 people that I would want for sure over Matt Ryan on the board right now. 100% for sure, we windmill pick that. The second one, I'm not sure. I think I would just take Matt Ryan. So the second one is Marvin Jones. I could live without Marvin Jones more than I could live without Matt Ryan pairing with Julio. So 2 more picks before us. Obviously, Matt Ryan could go in those picks, and then we'll come up with a different plan. Eckler. Come on, Bronco baller. This guy times out. I'm probably going to be pretty mad. Yes! So, the guy that I was 100% going to pick over Matt Ryan if he was there was Latavius Murray, and he did last. It's the latest share I've gotten on him. I have not gotten him at the 710 before. Every share I've had to get was an early round 7 share. So our next pick, if he's on the board, will be Matt Ryan. If Matt Ryan is not there, then we'll come up with a different plan. Maybe Sterling Shepard or Marvin Jones, if those guys are there. We'll not be taking Miles Sanders or Darius Geis or Royce Freeman. Royce Freeman has been falling and falling. I think he went around 11 of a drafted the other day. I already had 2 Week 10 running backs in that draft, and I couldn't take him. So I was pretty annoyed with that. So we're either going to take Matt Ryan, Marvin Jones, or Sterling Shepard with our pick. Only 2 can go off the board before us. Is there any consideration given to Njoku? Nope. He's a round 9 guy for me. If he's there in round 9, I'm very interested. If he's not there in round 9, I'm not interested. I have been actually getting a decent amount of him just because he's been in round 9. And I think that's where his value is. Very nice. So we got Matt Ryan to go with our Julio. That's nice. Shored up a very good stack right there. So let's take a look at our roster and see if there's any funky looking rosters going on out there. So we've got Matt Ryan at quarterback, Julio Diggs DJ Moore at wide receiver. James Conner, Fournette, Tevin Coleman, Latavius Murray at running back. This running back group is all kinds of people that I don't like, but the top 3 picks are guys that I'm just not high on. But yeah, like I said, I think I'm at 4% Conner, 4 or 5% Fournette, and 2% Coleman. So let's pull all those numbers up a bit. So if I wasn't trying to add, ownership percentage, Conner would have been Nick Chubb. Fournette would have been Fournette either way, just because of the way the draft fell. I would have just been taking him there regardless. What other choices we had? We had Diggs or Mahomes. I'm really happy with that pick just because I ended up with Ryan for Julio. The pick where we took Tevin Coleman, there just wasn't much on the board that I was all that into. I would rather have had Rashad Penny there, but he had already gone. I would rather have had Chris Carson, but he had went. James White, he had went. So it was kind of felt like the end of a tier almost. I'm not sure exactly if it was the end of a tier for me. I'd have to look at my rankings, but just kind of on the fly, it felt that way. Trying to see if we got any funky teams going on. We do have one. We have Big Dog. Wonder if he's got to eat. 1680, who already has 2 tight ends. Zach Ertz, OJ Howard. I don't really love it. Don't love it. Interesting that he took Baker. Wonder if he had Christian Kirk. Yeah, I think he had Christian Kirk already. So I think where he took Baker, I would have taken Kyler because I have them in the same tier. And I would have rather had Kyler Kirk than Baker Kirk. I have Baker ranked 1 or 2 spots ahead of Kyler, but those are the spots where you're looking to, jump to match up a guy for a stack. So the stack percentages we know about. There's an article about that out. Best Ball Deep Dive into stacking on Big Dogs Fantasy. It explains how the winning percentages you gain. So that's an exact spot where you actually want to go a little lower in your rankings to get your stack. Reason being, Baker and Kyler for me are in the same tier. They're both tier 2. I mean, this guy, he might have Kyler ranked lower. So then his pick is completely reasonable to take Baker there. But for me, they're both in the same tier, and I already had a wide receiver 1 for Kyler, so I would pick Kyler there. Or I would fade. If I thought maybe I can get Kyler the next round, I might just pick a different position instead of Baker. Just, have picked another running back or whatever. Yeah. This guy has 2 tight ends and 2 quarterbacks this early in the draft. I definitely don't like that in the first 9 rounds. I think that is actively bad. Like, if you wanted to have these 2, okay. It's not really for me. I probably wouldn't have 2 tight ends that early, but I've done it a few times. I've gotten especially when Vance McDonald was the second tight end, because there's sometimes when Vance McDonald is up on the board and I'm just like, hate everything else that's on the board. We still don't have a tight end on our team. Be a little interesting if Hooper's there. We could try to grab Hooper to stack with our Ryan Julio combo. Not something 100% necessary, but something just to consider because we don't have a tight end. Mark Andrews interests me quite a bit too. He's like a tier rank ahead of Hooper for me. I could let both go and try to get one back, but both people below me don't have a tight end. So this time I'm not going to go with the stack option because Mark Andrews is a tier above Austin Hooper for me, so I'm just going to take Mark Andrews. Take the higher tier guy. Especially since Hooper is the third stack option for Matt Ryan. So obviously Julio's number 1, Calvin Ridley's number 2, and for me I have Hooper ranked number 3. Arguably Sanu could be 3 and Hooper could be 4. But I'm assuming that Julio's going to take a bit of a, that Sanu's going to take a bit of a backseat now to Ridley. If Hooper's there when we pick again, we could snatch our second tight end. We already have 4 running backs, and there's some running backs I'm targeting a little bit later, namely Justin Jackson and Chase Edmonds. So I'm not terribly interested in a running back. Could take Cam Newton to go with our DJ Moore. And just because Cam Newton's good on his own, obviously. So choosing between Cam Newton and Austin Hooper. And, obviously when those words come out of your mouth, what do? You take Cam Newton, because Cam Newton's actually has been an elite football player at different times in his career. Plus the correlation of Cam Newton to his potential number 1 target in DJ Moore is just a lot stronger than Matt Ryan to Austin Hooper. Austin Hooper is probably going to score something like 0.25 points to every point Matt Ryan scores. So there's a tool out there called the DFS correlation matrix, and basically it tells you on average what types of players correlate strongest to the quarterbacks and like how many points they score per quarterback point. But if you ever want to figure out a player's like actual, you divide their total points from the season before by the quarterback's total points from the season before, and that will give you your correlation mark. So Austin Hooper's last year was 0.25. He scored 0.25 points per every point Matt Ryan scored. So sometimes you don't have a 16-game sample for one guy and a 16-game sample for the other guy. So what I do in that situation is adjust my quarterback's sample size to, whichever guy played more games, I adjust their sample size to the guy who played less games. So an example of this is Sammy Watkins. So to figure out how strongly he correlated to Mahomes, I had to change Mahomes' scoring from 16 games to 9 games. Then got that number and divided Sammy Watkins' output by that number. And Sammy Watkins ended up with a 0.28 point correlation. Whereas if you just took him and you matched him up to 16 games, he ended up with a 0.19, which obviously was horrible, but that's because he missed a bunch of games. So if you're asking how did I do all that, I took Pat Mahomes' total points, divided it by 16 to figure out his points per game. Then I multiplied that by 9 because that's how many games Sammy Watkins played. Took that number and divided Sammy Watkins' point total by that number and got the correlation mark for him. Yeah, that was long. Sorry about that. I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to this stuff, so if you tuned out of that, I don't blame you. So we've got Newton and Ryan. Nothing too crazy going on. We do have a guy with no quarterback and no tight end. Let's go look at his team, see what you get when you go that hard. So Michael Thomas, Tyreek, Keenan Allen, Geronimo Allison, Golden Tate. I mean, this guy's got pretty strong players all over the place. Josh Jacobs is your running back 1, kind of stinky, but it's got good depth at least. Plus he's got 3 pretty decent upside guys here. If Adrian Peterson just ends up with that job, we'll be fine again for most of the year. On our team, there's nothing we really need, so it's pretty much world is our oyster on what we want to pick. Not really sure if I want this to be a 2 tight end or a 2 quarterback team yet, though. Cam Newton makes me lean towards wanting to have 3 quarterbacks, but we've also used a lot higher draft capital on quarterbacks than we have on tight ends. So that makes me want to go 3 tight ends. So figure that out, I guess. The reason why I was kind of bringing it up now is because I was loosely considering Lamar Jackson. But I don't think we're going to do that. I think we're going to go 3 tight ends and look to grab Greg Olsen a bit later and then another tight end. Olsen to go with our Cam. So what we need the most is wide receivers, and there's just not really any wide receivers I'm super interested in drafting in this range. That's kind of unfortunate. I'm going to take Goddard here. I was deciding between Anthony Miller and Goddard. Really like Goddard's upside. Obviously, if something happens to Zach Ertz, Goddard's like a league winner type. So you saw me hem and haw a little bit there and then just all of a sudden decide on Goddard. The reason why I decided on Goddard at the last second over Anthony Miller was because I remembered the guy at the very end of the draft has no tight end. I didn't want to give him the opportunity of having Goddard and then an injury, and then that guy who already has an insane team gets Goddard. I'd just rather kind of block him off from that. Guess it worked out. So we got Anthony Miller as well. Some consideration here to Ito and Justice Hill, but my Justice Hill ownership is like so out of control. I basically drafted him every draft for like 50 drafts in a row, I think. Something close to that. Just got snaked on him a couple times in that run, but I've pretty much been just taking him in every draft. So with Goddard and Andrews, we don't have to go 3 tight ends. We can consider staying at 2. So, final answer is going to depend on where value falls to us, right? So, like, I don't really have a strong feeling early in this draft on if I want to go 3 quarterbacks or 3 tight ends. So, what we're going to do is make that decision based on, like, is all of a sudden, is it our pick and there's a tight end on the board that you're like, holy crap, that guy shouldn't be there? Then I'll go 3 tight ends. If it gets to our next pick in the late round 13 and Lamar Jackson's still on the board, I'm just going to be like, well, that's just too good a value and snatch up Lamar Jackson. So we're going to use that to decide what to go 3 quarterbacks or 3 tight ends. I at the moment slightly would rather, go 3 tight ends still, but Lamar Jackson's there when we pick again. We're going to go 3 quarterbacks. Even if Kirk Cousins is there, we could consider 3 quarterbacks still because we have Diggs, and that would be like Ryan and his number 1, Newton and his presumed number 1, DJ Moore, Cousins and his 1B or 1A, and Diggs. They're technically kind of Diggs and Thielen are both 1s. I think that is much more a 1A or B situation. People always want to rank things. So it's like, who's 1 and who's 2? There just isn't. Sorry. It's 1A and 1B. There's no 2 out of those guys. So yeah, it was nice getting Anthony Miller after passing him to grab Goddard. Because if you could have assured me that I would have went the other way, I would have done it the other way. Anthony Miller is a player that I'm very, very high on. I just worry a bit about the injuries because, man, what do you have, like 6 injuries in one season? At least the dude tried to play through them. You will give him credit for that. think he suffered 4 separated shoulders and had some sort of other injury going on as well last year. Whether it was the smartest thing for his career, I don't know the answer to that. But, Chicago was a legit contender going into the playoffs. I was a Saints fan, and there was one team I didn't want to play in the playoffs, and it was Chicago. So, got to give the guy credit for trying to play through all that. Still no wide receivers on the board, though. I'm like, must have. I don't mind these Miami dudes. Got a nice mix of all of them. Round 13, 14, I'm going to look to get one of these two. So one of our 2 picks coming up on this way down, I'm going to look to either get Justin Jackson or Chase Edmonds. I like Justin Jackson slightly better than Chase Edmonds right now just because that situation going on with Melvin Gordon. It's crazy. I did hear a little thing about that if the Chargers were to decide to trade Melvin Gordon, that they might bring in someone else. So it's not guaranteed that Justin Jackson would even be stepping into the role that we think he is going to step into. But that's too much. That's too much going on. You just got to kind of work with the information you have now. And the information we have now would basically be if Melvin Gordon were to hold out, Justin Jackson would be the guy. Along with Eckler, obviously. But Eckler wouldn't get that huge ADP boost that Jackson would get. Could consider an Alexander Madison share here. He's a guy I've been missing on a bunch lately. I have a ton of him, but it's because he got added to the player pool late after the NFL draft. He wasn't in the player pool, so every time I drafted, I would go looking for him. Kind of want Greg Olsen, but I think we get our pick of which one of these 2 guys we want. Between Chase Edmonds and Justin Jackson. This is tough, but I'm going to take Justin Jackson. So, not really any quarterbacks that I feel like, wow, incredible value is still on the board. As far as tight ends go, I think the best one still on the board is Hawkinson. I do have a buttload of Hawkinson. It'd be interesting if Chase Edmonds not drafted, what we do. Well, I said we're going to make our decision based on there being really good value on the board and us feeling like we can't pass it. I think that's TJ Hawkinson for me. I think his upside is just too much higher than, even though we could get Greg Olsen as the 3rd stack dude for Newton, because I have it ranked, obviously, more Samuel Olsen. I think we just got to take Hawkinson. He's too much better of a player. Too much more upside, I mean. So we don't need any more tight ends, and we don't need any more quarterbacks, and we only need one more running back. So it looks like a lot of these times in these drafts, I'm ending up drafting 3 wide receivers at the end now. Really like that Madison pick. Quite a while for us to go before we go again. Here I'm going to be doing a little bit of DFS content based around the Millionaire Maker. So I think I'm going to be doing 2 lineups a week and giving out most of the lineup. I think DraftKings has a rule where you're not allowed to give out entire lineups to people. So I might do something like all the positions except for flex and defense. Probably do a video on that each week too, since there won't be these drafts to be doing. Let's take a second to talk about Todd Gurley, because people they're still not getting it, man. I don't know why this situation is as difficult to understand as it is. So the people that still want to take Todd Gurley early in round 2 or mid round 2, okay, their argument keeps being, well, 75% of Todd Gurley is still like RB6. 60% of Todd Gurley's production is still RB9. That's true. 100% right. But that's like 1/10 of the story. If you can guarantee me I'm going to get that production, hell yeah, I'm in. The problem is that's not what people are worried about. People are not concerned that Todd Gurley's all of a sudden going to be horrible if he's healthy. The problem is, with this arthritis going on in his knee and the doctor's reports that we've seen, I've watched 3 videos from doctors that specialize in fantasy football, right? And then I've went and read 8 other articles written by doctors about knee arthritis. And every single one of these 8 doctors, 3 that are involved in fantasy football, 5 that aren't, basically had the same conclusions. Whether you were a football player or just some regular dude living your life, that at any point this arthritic condition in your knee can get irritated. And once it gets irritated, it's incredibly hard for you to do anything with your knee. And we saw a video of Todd Gurley in April. The problems with the Super Bowl, blah, 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 that was all happening in, early February. There's a video of Todd Gurley walking out of a club in April, still having a significant limp. So maybe he just had treatment on his knee and that's why it's pissed off or something like that, right? But I don't care. If your knee is going to get pissed off and you're going to have to be limping around and this is happening with you getting treatment and going to a dance club and stuff like that, you think you're going to play NFL football and just be like, yeah, he's good. Good to go. Probably going to hit the ceiling if I get to pick Chase Edmonds here. Can it happen twice? Earlier in this draft, this guy was up on the board, and I really wanted Latavius Murray, and he let it. Oh my God, that feels so good. Not only do I get Chase Edmonds, but dude takes Joe Flacco. Woo! All right, so now we're down to we just need. See, even draft can't believe that we've gotten Chase Edmonds here. They're like, no, we're not putting that pick in for you. It's not fair. So now we're just down to wide receivers, and we need 3 of them. Because of the way this draft ran out, it sucks having to take so many wide receivers at the end and have them all be lesser players. But there are still a reasonable amount of ceiling type dudes you can get in these rounds. So I don't think you should feel terrible if you end up taking 3 wide receivers in the last 3 rounds. I try not to have this happen. I try to, have it be 2 wide receivers and a running back, 2 wide receivers and a tight end. But we got hit in the face with the Hawkinson value. I thought that was just too good of a pick to pass on as our 3rd tight end. Then I really wanted Justin Jackson or Chase Edmonds in the next round, and then we got both of them in the 2 rounds. So I'm going to take a ceiling guy here and take Albert Wilson. Not healthy at the moment, but this dude is a serious playmaker. Last year, man, if you want to go look at highlights of a game, go look up the Dolphins-Bears game last year where the Dolphins beat them and how just disgusting Albert Wilson was in that game. That was the best defense in the league last season, and he absolutely destroyed them. Of course, he got almost half of his production for the season in that one game. So that's a little dangerous. But there's one other thing I wanted to talk about in this video that I haven't gotten to yet. I just pulled it out of the back of my mind. Dalvin Cook. So was looking up Dalvin Cook's career stats because his career stats basically is one season, right? It's 15 games. And in Dalvin Cook's entire career, he's ran for 100 yards twice. One was his first game playing against Saints 2 years ago when the Saints defense was not good. It was epically terrible. Then his second 100-yard rushing game was last season against the Miami defense that was absolutely terrible. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns in that game against Miami, and they'd pretty much given up, and they didn't really have any impact players on defense. It was just kind of a pile of crap team, right? I mean, they did finish with a decent record, but there was a point in the season where they kind of broke, and we're like, all right, we've had enough, tapped out. So if you were to take away this one game against Miami, the other 14 games of Dalvin Cook's career, he has one 100-yard rushing game against the Saints, who are also a bad defense. And he has 2 career rushing touchdowns outside of this Miami game. So I'm not saying Dalvin Cook isn't talented. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying I think that our expectations of what he's going to do if he plays 16 games is a little out of whack. I think it's too high. Everyone's like, if he plays 16 games, he's top 5 running back, top 5 running back, top 5 running back. Maybe not. Like, if the top 5 running backs stay healthy and Dalvin Cook stays healthy, he's probably not a top 5 running back. If there's guys like Nick Chubb or Damian Williams that could beat him out still. If James Conner were to have the same role as he has last season, even if he had like a small dip in his receiving production, giving it up to Samuels, but he played 16 games and stayed healthy, he could outscore Dalvin Cook. There's still like 10 guys that could finish ahead of him if their seasons go well, even if he's healthy. So I'm not saying don't take shots on Dalvin Cook in the second round. I'm just saying, I think you need to lower your expectations for what his ceiling is a bit. I think the expectations for his ceiling have gotten out of control, and like it's getting to the point where it's like one guy wants to love him more than everyone else, so he comes up with the even higher ceiling projection for Dalvin Cook. It's like, no, I'm the Dalvin Cook guy because I want to be the one that said that he liked him the most when he has this huge breakout. So I'm going to say that he's even going to be better than what this person said. But I don't think the ceiling is quite as high as people want you to believe. Now, I do have 12% of Dalvin Cook, mostly, mid-round 2, late round 2. And I like him, so I have a 1.5 to the average 1 share. So I don't want you to think I dislike the guy or anything. I think he's a good player. I think he has a pretty decent ceiling. I just worry a little bit that people are getting a little too out of whack with him. So with Anthony Miller and Albert Wilson, I kind of want to add at least one safe guy to this pool. Grab Ted Ginn. So I'm pretty sure our next guy is going to be someone I don't feel 100% safe about. Right now I'm looking at between Zay Jones and A.J. Brown. I think I both like the ceiling and the floor on Zay Jones a little bit better. Dealing with a minor injury right now, but says he should be ready for training camp. Grab him. He had a pretty good end of season last year, and basically like nobody wants him. Just goes around 18 all the time now. My ownership percentage on Zay Jones is going to end up being a lot higher than I thought it would be. So let's quickly take a look, see if we can find any roster constructions that we feel are off. So we've got a 3 running backs, 3 tight ends team. I don't like that. This team only has 2 of each and has 8 wide receivers. I don't like that. I don't think you need 8 wide receivers. I know it makes you feel better because you have to have 3 in your lineup, but We broke down the numbers on how teams performed last year in best ball, and 8 wide receivers wasn't not all that special. It was slightly better than 6 wide receivers and considerably worse than 7 wide receivers. I know you're thinking, how can 8 be worse than 7? Because of the effect it had on the rest of your team, obviously. Because you were giving up something to get that 8th wide receiver, and that person was blocked out of your lineup too often from other people producing well. So you just don't need 8 wide receivers. Like, this guy's going in with only 2 tight ends and only 2 quarterbacks. So, like, if he suffers one injury to a quarterback or a tight end, he's in trouble. Or if one of those people just absolutely sucks, he's in trouble, because then you have to take every bad week from your other guy. So say Wentz was to get hurt, which happens a lot. Now you're taking every shitty Jared Goff week. And there's going to be some shitty Jared Goff weeks. There will be some fantastic ones, but there'll be some poop ones in there too. So the fact that you now have to take every single one of his bad weeks, and you don't have anything else if something happens to Carson Wentz, So yeah, you're forced to put yourself in this position at one spot, right? You're either going to have 2 quarterbacks or 2 tight ends. But if you take 7 wide receivers, you don't have to put yourself in this spot on both. So what if Noah Fant just isn't any good or isn't used much as a rookie? I think he will be. But what if he just fucking sucks so bad at blocking that they feel like they can't have him on the field, which is definitely possible because he sucks at blocking. Or what if something happens to Hunter Henry and then you're getting every Noah Fant week? Oh. So like I said, you have to have this situation in one spot, but you don't have to have it in 2 spots. So if you have 3 quarterbacks, you're only worried about one of your 2 tight ends getting hurt, right? If you have 3 tight ends, you're only worried about one of your 2 quarterbacks. But now you're worried about 4 guys. You're worried about every single guy at both of these positions getting hurt, and it really affecting your team. So you have increased your injury liability that you care about from 2 to 4, which is 100% increase. You have increased your injury liability by 100% going from 2 to 4. So that's why you should not draft 8 wide receivers. So you make sure that you have 3 at one of these positions. Same goes for this B. Hall person. Got another person, Bronco Baller, that went 3 tight ends, 3 quarterbacks. I think that's too short. Definitely want another wide receiver. This guy went 3 and 3 and went 5 running backs. Let's take a look at his running backs. I wouldn't do this, but there's certain teams where you look at the running backs and you're like, see, I don't like it even on this team. So I looked at the first 4 guys and I was like, yeah, maybe this is fine. And then Jamal Williams. Jamal Williams can be phased completely out with Dexter Williams there. We have no clue about that. So might kind of be down to 4 running backs, and then Chris Carson's already dealing with some sort of mild issue. Tariq Cohen's role might be reduced a bit. Mixon and Johnson have both, had injuries. I think you just want, you want 6 running backs, you want 7 wide receivers. So let's break down my team, and then we will get out of here. So I've got Matt Ryan and Cam Newton. I'm taking the injury risk, obviously, with Cam Newton there, only having 2 quarterbacks. Am I 100% comfortable with it? Nope, but I was forced to make the decision, and with us using more draft capital on quarterback than tight end, I decided to go with 3 tight ends. So with Newton, Matt Ryan, that's a B+, A- type of tandem. Running back, we've got Connor, Fournette, Coleman, Murray, Justin Jackson, Chase Edmonds. It's just a B for me. It's a B with the upside to do better than that, but it also is a B with the downside to be worse than that. So that's why it's going to hang out right at a B for me. We've got Julio Diggs, DJ Moore, Anthony Miller, Albert Wilson, Ginn, and Zay Jones. I think we got a very nice combo here of upside and safe with our last 3. Our top 3 are super strong, so this is probably a B+. Could be an A- if DJ Moore is able to hit his ceiling, but I think a B+ is the fair grade for that. Then we've got Mark Andrews, Dallas Goedert, TJ Hawkinson. The upside here is, you don't get much better than that for, not having any top tight ends. If you have no top tight ends on your roster and you have Andrews, Goddard, and Hawkinson, you have the most upside you probably can possibly have without having those guys. So I would give this, you can't give it more than a B because your top guy is Mark Andrews, but At least this has the upside to hit all kinds of an A. It can get up there. All right, thank you guys for watching. In the description, there will be a link to the Twitter. If you want to ask any questions, post any rosters, do that kind of stuff to me, feel free. There'll be a link to the Instagram, which is just a Instagram with pictures of all the best ball rosters I've drafted this year. And there will be a link to the new ownership article. If you're doing less than 50 of these drafts, I don't want to tell people not to go look at my stuff, but the information is not pertinent to you. If you are doing 100 or more drafts, I feel like that is information that you have to have. So go take a look at it if you are planning to do that many drafts. Good luck in your drafts, folks. Thanks for taking the time.